Some truths don't heal, they infect. Not all knowledge was meant to be known. Friedrich Nietzsche. I don't know where you spend your days. I don't know where you walk, where you pass the time, where you try to feel alive. But if you regularly visit the 5 places I'm about to name, there's something you need to hear. Not later, now. These places aren't neutral. They don't just surround you, they reshape you. And if you stay in them long enough, they will devour your mind, slowly, invisibly, without resistance, just like they've already devoured millions. We live in a time where madness isn't loud, it's subtle, it wears a mask. And the most dangerous thing? You might already be losing yourself and not even notice. These 5 places are not just physical spots. They're environments of unconscious death. Places where your soul goes numb, your attention collapses, your will fades. Places where people walk, talk, breathe, but they're not alive, just reacting, just performing, just surviving. And they look so normal. That's what makes them so deadly. Some of these places you go to every day. Some you carry inside. But all of them have one thing in common. They disconnect you from your inner truth. They erase your boundaries, numb your emotions, kill your curiosity. And over time, they create a version of you that's acceptable to society, but unbearable to your soul. You don't scream, you don't resist. You adapt, until one day you can't tell who you are anymore. Most people never notice the shift. They feel tired, distracted, lost, but they blame their job, their age, their phone. Anything but the truth. And the truth is brutal. These places change your psychology. They drain your nervous system. They reduce your awareness to a survival mode, day after day, thought after thought, until your life becomes a pattern, a loop, a slow descent into numbness. And what's worse, everyone around you is doing the same. That's how the madness spreads, not through violence, but through repetition, through normalization. Friedrich Nietzsche warned about this long ago. He said that whoever fights monsters must be careful not to become one. But today, we don't even fight. We submit, not to monsters, but to routines, structures, environments that reward obedience and punish awareness, that seduce you with comfort and leave you hollow. So before we go deeper, ask yourself this: what if the reason you feel empty has nothing to do with what's wrong inside you and everything to do with where you keep going? What if it's not you that's broken, but the spaces you keep entering? Spaces that shape your identity without asking, that program your desires without your consent, that take your presence and give you distraction, that offer you connection but deliver noise. This video is not for everyone. It's not for those looking for comfort, for easy answers, for motivation. It's for those who are ready to see, to feel, to question, and maybe to change. Not instantly, not perfectly, but honestly. You're not crazy for feeling the way you do. You're reacting exactly as a human should react, in a system that demands you stop being one. If these words hit something in you, subscribe to the channel, because more people need to hear this truth before it's too late. And check the Telegram too. That's where the deeper conversations happen. The raw ones, the ones no one wants to publish. What comes next is not comfortable, but it is real. And if you're still here, it means you're ready. These places destroy not because they explode your life, but because they dissolve it, quietly, in routine, in repetition. That's their nature. They flatten your awareness until it becomes normal to be disconnected. Normal to be tired for no reason. Normal to feel like nothing matters. But this isn't normal. It's programming. Each time you enter one of these spaces, your nervous system adapts, your body tightens, your breath shallows, you switch off the parts of yourself that don't belong, and over time, you forget they ever existed. You've probably tried to fix yourself. Books, therapy, positive thinking. But nothing changes. You wonder why. You blame yourself. But the truth is harsh. You've been doing everything right, in the wrong environment. You can't heal in the same space that makes you sick. That's not a metaphor. That's biology. If your body is constantly exposed to tension, noise, and dead energy, no amount of journaling will save you. You'll keep looping because your surroundings speak louder than your intentions. Most people have no idea how much of their suffering comes from their environment. They chase answers inside while the outside keeps poisoning them. You weren't born anxious. You were conditioned. You weren't born numb. You were trained to suppress in places that reward silence and punish aliveness. The system doesn't want you present. It wants you predictable, productive, quiet. And the longer you stay in these spaces, the more you become what they need, not what you are. No one warns you about this, because the most destructive spaces are the ones we've normalized, the ones we call safe, practical, necessary. That's the trap. We label slow death as stability. We call soul suffocation a lifestyle. And if you question it, people call you crazy. But you're not crazy. You're waking up. And waking up in a sleeping world will always feel like madness, because suddenly you see it. The noise, the emptiness, the masks. These 5 places are not dangerous because of what they look like. They're dangerous because of what they do to you. Neurologically, emotionally, existentially. They rob you of silence. And silence is where your self lives. They flood your senses with distraction. And distraction is how the system keeps you asleep. These are not just spaces. They're traps designed to keep you stuck in a loop of almost alive. They numb the very parts of you that could resist. So ask yourself, when did you last feel truly here? Not just functioning, not just performing, but present, alive, aware. If you can't remember, you've been inside these places too long. And if you keep going, you won't just lose time, you'll lose yourself, your edge, your hunger, your truth. But if you step out, even for a moment, you'll notice it. The difference, the stillness, the pullback to who you really are. And once you feel that, nothing fake will satisfy you again. What happens when you avoid these places? When you consciously step out of the environments that drain you, flatten you, erase you? Something shifts. First, quietly, then unmistakably. Your senses begin to come back online. The fog in your head starts to lift. You start noticing things you used to ignore, your breath, your tension, your real thoughts beneath the noise. You feel strange at first, like you don't fit, like you're waking up in a dream. But that discomfort is the beginning of awareness. When you stop feeding the spaces that keep you asleep, your energy stops leaking, and suddenly the exhaustion that followed you for years starts to loosen its grip. You find yourself saying no to things that never felt optional before. You stop apologizing for needing space. You start questioning why you ever tolerated so much noise, so much pressure, so much pretending. And beneath it all, a new rhythm begins to emerge, one that doesn't revolve around performance or productivity. A rhythm that feels human. Avoiding these places doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means reclaiming your attention. It means choosing spaces that support your nervous system, not hijack it. It means understanding that your mental health is not just a chemical equation, It's spatial, relational, rhythmic. Where you are shapes who you are, and when you leave the spaces of unconscious survival, you give yourself permission to live on your own terms, not society's scripts. Your thinking sharpens. You stop rushing without knowing why. You stop consuming out of boredom or pain. You start feeling hunger again, not just physical, but existential. A hunger to grow, to feel, to create. You begin to sense the weight of your own choices. You realize how often you outsourced your will to the environment around you. How many of your so-called preferences were actually programmed, and that realization stings, but it also liberates. You'll notice the shift in your relationships too. The more present you become, the more you'll feel the dissonance with people who are still asleep. Conversations that once felt normal now feel hollow. The gossip, the complaints, the constant distraction, it no longer lands. You crave something real, and not everyone will come with you. But the ones who do, they'll meet you in that same honesty, that same hunger, that same refusal to go back to sleep. This is not about becoming better, it's about becoming honest. When you avoid these places, you're not escaping life. You're finally entering it. You're remembering that your time, your space, your mind, they're sacred, not resources to be extracted, not channels for someone else's agenda, but instruments for truth. The more you respect that, the stronger you become, not in a loud, performative way, but quietly, solidly, unshakably. Now let's name them. The 5 places Nietzsche would tell you to avoid if you want to stay sane. These are not symbolic. These are real environments you step into, often daily, without realizing the cost. And each one carries a psychological weight, invisible but cumulative. The first is public transportation. Buses, subways, packed trains. Not because of the destination, but because of the atmosphere. You're surrounded by silence, tension, exhaustion. Everyone avoids eye contact. Everyone scrolls or stares. It's a ritual of disconnection. Your nervous system contracts. You move through space as a body, not a presence. You're not thinking, you're enduring. Nietzsche would call this a machine for the spiritless. You might arrive physically, but mentally, you're erased. The second is shopping malls and hyper-commercial spaces, places engineered to manipulate desire. It's not about buying, it's about overstimulation. You walk in with no need and leave with things you didn't know you wanted. Music, lights, smells, every detail is crafted to hijack your impulse. And in that state, your deeper needs, connection, silence, truth, get buried. You trade them for surface satisfaction. Nietzsche warned, "He who cannot find meaning will drown in pleasure." These places offer escape, not fulfillment. And the more time you spend in them, the more your identity becomes consumption. The third is gaming centers and entertainment zones. Not all play is dangerous, but compulsive escape is. When you enter places designed only to distract, you stop growing. These spaces don't challenge you, they sedate you. Hours pass, nothing changes, no memory forms. You're not alive, you're suspended, and your brain, over time, loses its edge, its hunger. These environments feed the part of you that fears effort, that wants safety without risk, comfort without meaning. But that comfort costs you your fire. Nietzsche believed that man becomes himself through struggle. In these places, there is no struggle, only sedation. The fourth is social circles built on complaint and blame, spaces where people gather not to build, but to dissolve, to gossip, to project, to recycle pain without responsibility. Every time you sit in that energy, it stains you. You laugh at what you hate. You agree with what makes you small. And slowly, you become the very thing you once resisted. Nietzsche said, "If you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." Surround yourself with weak minds long enough, and you will break your own edge to fit in. The fifth is institutional environments with no soul, lifeless jobs, meaningless offices, places where the body is present, but the spirit is gone. These are the spaces where people die slowly, in suits and polite smiles, where nothing is said, but everything is drained, where time is counted, but meaning is absent. Nietzsche feared these places most because they normalize death in life. They convince you that survival is success, that the absence of pain is joy, but numbness is not peace. And staying there too long will convince you that your silence is wisdom, when really it's defeat. The most disturbing part? You keep going back, not because you love these places, but because they're familiar, predictable. You've been conditioned to see them as normal, even necessary. That's how deep the programming runs. These aren't just locations, they're rituals, habits, neural pathways reinforced by years of repetition, and the system counts on that. It doesn't need to force you, it just needs to make you forget there's another way. You stop questioning, not because you agree, but because questioning feels exhausting, risky, lonely. So you stay, you adapt, you shrink. But here's the truth, no one tells you. The reason you return isn't laziness, it's fear. Fear of isolation, fear of judgment, fear of losing the little structure you have. Your inner child still believes that if you step out of line, you'll be abandoned, rejected. And so, even as an adult, you cling to dead spaces because they feel safer than the unknown. Nietzsche spoke of this too, that people would rather remain in chains than face the terror of freedom, because freedom demands responsibility, and most have been trained to avoid that burden at all costs. You might have already felt this tension, that moment where your body resists entering the office, the mall, the group chat, but your mind overrides it. You tell yourself it's fine, that everyone does it, that you're overthinking. But that resistance is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's your nervous system trying to warn you. These places don't just waste your time, they fracture your intuition. They train you to ignore your own signals, to distrust your instincts, to silence the voice inside that says, "This isn't right." And over time, that voice gets quieter, until one day, it disappears. And you realize you don't know what you want anymore, not because you never knew, but because it got buried under years of compliance, of smiling when you wanted to scream, of nodding when you wanted to leave, of staying when your soul begged you to run. This is the slow death Nietzsche feared most, the death of the will, the erosion of the part of you that says no, that draws a line, that burns for something real. If you've been wondering why life feels heavy, this is why. You've been breathing stale air for too long. You've been surrounding yourself with energy that doesn't nourish. And no affirmation, no productivity hack, no external fix will save you if you keep returning to places that drain you. Healing isn't about doing more. It's about stopping the thing that keeps breaking you. And that thing, most often, is a place you've normalized, a space you defend, a room you keep walking into long after your truth has walked out. So how do you break free? Not by waiting for the world to change, not by asking permission, but by choosing deliberately to avoid these spaces, to stop feeding them your time, your breath, your energy. It won't feel comfortable at first. Your body might resist. Your mind will panic. That's normal. You've built a life around these places. You've associated them with safety, identity, routine. But safety is not the same as truth. An identity built on numbness is not self, it's survival. Start small. Don't just escape. Replace. If you use public transport daily, use that time to return to yourself. Silence the noise. Read something that awakens you. Meditate. Train your attention to stay inward, not outward. If your job is in a soulless building, find micro-rituals of aliveness. Step outside. Ground yourself. Speak truth in small moments. Don't perform. Connect. These shifts sound simple, but they disrupt deep patterns. You're not just changing habits, you're reclaiming control. Second, track your energy, not just your time. Notice where you feel drained versus where you feel charged. Not excited, alive. There's a difference. Excitement fades. Aliveness deepens. If you leave a place feeling smaller, foggier, heavier, that's a sign. Respect that signal. If certain people always leave you doubting yourself, that's a signal too. Your body knows long before your mind admits it. Start trusting that again. It's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. Third, create environments that support your nervous system. Spaces of warmth, silence, and truth. That could be a corner in your room, a voice note you record every morning, a community that speaks the language of presence, not performance. These spaces don't have to be big, they just have to be real, nourishing, aligned. The more time you spend there, the less tolerable the old spaces become. Your tolerance for noise drops. Your hunger for honesty rises. Fourth, build relationships around growth, not comfort. Stop bonding over shared pain and start bonding over shared presence. It will feel unfamiliar. You'll feel exposed, but it's worth it. Choose conversations that challenge you to be awake, that hold you to your potential, that don't let you collapse into excuses. These connections are rare, but one of them can undo years of isolation. You don't need many, you just need truth, and truth always finds its own. Fifth, protect your space like your life depends on it, because it does. Don't apologize for avoiding the places that make you forget who you are. Don't justify your need for peace. Don't explain your silence. This is your nervous system, your time, your future. Every no you say to those 5 places is a yes to something deeper, to clarity, to strength, to the version of you that's been waiting to emerge once the noise fades, once the fake world collapses, once you remember that you were never meant to fit in, you were meant to wake up. Most people underestimate these places. They think they're harmless, just part of everyday life, just where things happen. But that's the lie. These 5 places shape almost everything: your thoughts, your mood, your language, your decisions. And without realizing it, your entire life becomes an extension of those spaces. The frustration you carry, the exhaustion you can't explain, the lack of direction, all of it is tied to where you spend your time and who surrounds you while you're there. You become the energy you absorb. You think the thoughts that dominate your environment. You adopt the standards of those you spend time with. And if you spend your life around people who are numb, negative, distracted, bitter, don't be surprised if you start feeling the same. You are not separate from your surroundings. You are shaped by them, molded, rewired. And that's why escaping these 5 places isn't optional, it's essential. The truth is, most unhappy lives are not the result of bad intentions. They're the result of bad environments, of staying too long in spaces that kill your hunger, that silence your edge, that normalize smallness. You don't need to be saved. You need to stop returning to what breaks you and start building a different world around you, one that lifts, sharpens, and expands you. A space that calls you into heights you forgot you could reach. So if these words struck something in you, subscribe to the channel. Let's make sure more people hear what others are too afraid to say. And check the Telegram too. That's where the real, unfiltered conversations happen. And if you see yourself in these words, write in the comments, "I no longer run from pain." Let's see how many of us are done pretending. Let's build something real, together. This is only the beginning.